Walk into any room, and you can spot them instantly: the loudest voice, the biggest gestures, the person working the hardest to be noticed. And your entire life you have probably been taught that this is what power looks like, that to command respect you need to perform, you need to react, you need to prove yourself in every interaction. But the ancient Greeks understood something that modern social dynamics has completely forgotten: the most dangerous man in the room is never the one shouting, it is the one who barely moves at all while everyone else is performing, fighting for attention, reacting to every comment, defending every position. There is one person who simply does not. And without saying a word, that person becomes the gravitational center of the room. Everyone else orbits around there. Stillness. And today, you're going to learn exactly how this works and how to use it. By the end of this video, you will understand a principle so simple it almost sounds too easy to be true. But once you start applying it, you will notice something remarkable happening to how people treat you. And if you want to understand the mechanics of social power that most people never see, make sure you subscribe right now, because this changes how you walk into every room for the rest of your life. There is a story about the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius that illustrates this perfectly. Even as Emperor of Rome with absolute power over the known world, he was famous for something unusual. He rarely reacted emotionally to insults, criticism, or even outright disrespect from those around him, while other powerful men of his era were known for explosive tempers and dramatic displays of dominance. Marcus Aurelius cultivated something almost unsettling to his contemporaries: a kind of profound stillness. People who tried to provoke him often walked away feeling strangely defeated, even though he had said almost nothing. This was not weakness. This was not passivity. This was what we can call strategic indifference. And it is one of the most underused forms of power that exists. Here is the principle behind it: every reaction you give to another person is information. It tells them what affects you, what does not, what you care about, what you are insecure about. Every time you respond quickly to a provocation, a criticism, or even a compliment, you are essentially handing someone a map to your internal world. The person who reacts the least gives away the least. And in social dynamics, the person who gives away the least information almost always ends up with the most power. This brings us to a tactical tool that is deceptively simple but incredibly powerful. We will call it the 3-second rule of silence. Here is how it works. The next time someone says something to you that would normally trigger an immediate response, whether it is a criticism, a passive-aggressive comment, or even an attempt to provoke you, instead of responding right away, you simply pause for 3 seconds. That's it, just 3 seconds of silence before you say anything at all. Now here is what happens during those 3 seconds. Most people are deeply uncomfortable with silence, especially silence that follows something they just said. When you do not immediately react, the other person's brain starts to fill that void, and it fills it with their own insecurities. They start wondering, did that not land the way I expected? Does this person not care what I think? Am I the one who looks foolish right now? The silence itself becomes a kind of mirror reflecting their words back at them, without you having to say anything at all. Think about a situation many people have experienced: a boss or authority figure says something designed to provoke a reaction, designed to make someone feel small in front of others. And instead of immediately defending themselves or reacting emotionally, the person simply does not respond right away. They let 3 seconds of silence sit in the air. And in that silence, something shifts. The boss, who expected an emotional reaction, a defense, an explanation, gets nothing instead. And often what happens next is almost comedic. The boss, who was looking for a fight when there is no fight to be had, simply walks away faster than they arrived, because the entire interaction only had power if it got a reaction. And when the reaction never comes, the interaction has nowhere to go. This is the core mechanism behind the law of least effort. Most social interactions, especially confrontational ones, are built on an unspoken assumption that both people are participating in the same game. When someone insults you, they are expecting you to play the game of defense or counterattack. When someone tries to provoke you, they are expecting you to play the game of emotional reaction. But when you simply do not play the game, when you respond with calm silence or a delayed, measured response, there is no game happening anymore. and people find this deeply disorienting in a way they cannot quite articulate. This connects to something the author Robert Greene has written extensively about: the idea that in social dynamics, whoever cares less about the outcome of an interaction almost always has more power. This does not mean you do not care about anything in your life. It means in the specific moment of a confrontation or provocation, your sense of self is not on the line. Your identity does not depend on winning this particular exchange, and that internal stability is something other people can sense even if they cannot explain why. So how do you actually build this into your own behavior? Because right now this might sound like something only naturally calm people can do, but it is actually a skill that can be trained. The first practice is simply noticing your urge to respond immediately the next time someone says something that triggers an instinct to react. Notice that urge as it happens. You do not need to act on it or suppress it dramatically, just notice. It exists. This awareness alone starts to create a small gap between stimulus and response, and that gap is where all of this power actually lives. The second practice is the deliberate pause. We already talked about the 3-second rule, but let's go deeper. This pause is not about being slow or awkward. It is about controlled timing. When you pause before responding, even briefly, you signal something important. You signal that your response is a choice, not a reflex, and choices carry more weight than reflexes because choices come from a place of control. The third practice is reducing your reactions to compliments as well as criticism. This might surprise you, but the law of least effort applies to positive attention too. When someone praises you excessively or tries to flatter you, reacting with excessive gratitude or visible excitement also gives away information. It shows what validates you and what you are hungry for. The person who receives praise with calm acknowledgement, rather than an enthusiastic emotional response, maintains the same unreadable quality that makes silence so powerful in confrontations. The fourth practice is becoming comfortable with being misread. Sometimes, when you do not react the way people expect, they might interpret your silence as coldness or arrogance or even confusion. This is uncomfortable for most people because we are wired to want to be understood. But here is the trade-off you are making. Either you can be easily read and easily reacted to by everyone around you, or you can be occasionally misunderstood by people whose understanding does not actually matter to your life. The unshakable person accepts being misread by some as the cost of being unreadable by those who would use that information against them. Here is what I want you to understand about all of this. The goal is not to become emotionless. The goal is not to suppress how you genuinely feel internally. What changes is the gap between what you feel and what you immediately display. That gap is not dishonesty. It is simply discretion. And within that gap is where all real social power exists, because the moment someone can predict exactly how you will react to anything they say, they have effectively gained a remote control to your behavior. And the moment that predictability disappears, that remote control stops working. The next time you feel that familiar urge to respond instantly to a comment, a provocation, or even a compliment, try sitting in the 3 seconds first, not because you are trying to manipulate the situation, but because in that small space, you remain the person making the choice, rather than the person reacting to someone else's choice. And over time, that small space becomes the foundation of something people will start to feel around you, even if they can never quite explain what it is. If this video gave you a new way to think about social power and stillness, make sure you subscribe, because next time we are going deeper into how to read a room before anyone speaks, and why the person who listens the most usually understands the most about what is really happening.